Let's just start with this. The big story, of course, and I know, there's a lot of people who, well, I'm sure there are varied reactions to this. I mean, Mike Pence told us he didn't have to wear a mask when he went to the Mayo Clinic because, of course, he's constantly tested and everyone around him is tested. And gosh, they would never, the White House, they would never jeopardize the president or the vice president. And of course, it turns out that his spokeswoman, last name Miller, oddly enough, has tested positive. She is Stephen Miller's wife. And now Stephen Miller apparently has not tested positive. He's tested negative. It's unclear if he is, he's not going back into work, but just about everybody else is. Now, the doctors, Redfield and Fauci and Stephen Hahn, who's the FDA, they've decided to hang back from the White House from there, presumably because they don't want to send the wrong message to other medical personnel. But as far as the White House is concerned, they're trying to push this idea that there's no problem. We can open up the infection, the disease is going to go away. And as long as we save the economy, we'll all be fine. And apparently a lot of the people in the White House are freaking out now. I don't want to lie and say that this did not bring a smile to my face, but it did when I read this graph. This is from the New York Times. Mr. Trump continues to reject guidance from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to wear a mask when meeting with groups of people. But a senior administration official said the president was spooked that his valet, who was among those who serve him food, that is just a disgusting thought, had not been wearing a mask. And he was annoyed to learn that Ms. Miller tested positive, has been growing irritated with people who get too close to him, the official said. Here's Donald Trump sharing the news that the White House staff is now infected.
I don't know much about it. Any questions? John?
Can you bring us up to speed about the member of the vice president's staff who is now tested positive for coronavirus? This is now the second staffer in the West Wing.
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about it. Does anybody want to talk about it? She's a wonderful young woman. Katie, she tested very good for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden today she tested positive. She hasn't come into contact with me. She spent some time with the vice president. It's, I believe, the press person, right? You'd say press person. So she tested positive out of the blue. This is why the whole concept of tests aren't necessarily great. The tests are perfect, but something can happen between a test where it's good and then something happens and all of a sudden she was tested very recently and tested negative. And then today, I guess, for some reason, she tested positive. So Mike knows about it, and Mike has done what he has to do. I think he is on an airplane going to some faraway place, but you'll be able to ask him later on. But they've taken all of the necessary precautions. I understand Mike has been tested, Vice President, and he tested negative.
Yeah, but what good are tests, right?
This whole idea, this guy's such an effing idiot. It's unbelievable. Or he's just so freaked that he doesn't even have the ability to be in any way comprehensible. Or I should say, coherent. You know what's weird too about this? I mean, look, obviously, the low-hanging fruit here is that the moron doesn't seem to understand that's why you test every day, because people can catch it afterwards. And I also love the fact that she clearly has not been adhering to any guidelines, that she and Stephen Miller have been doing whatever they want. And I love that. I think that's wonderful. I think Mike Pence might be on the verge of getting me to believe in some fashion of God if he keeps this up. But I love the fact that he also speaks of her. She's a great person, even though she had a bad test. Like this, it's like almost the same way they talk about people who are living in poverty. Like there's some type of moral repudiation that is going on because they have tested for COVID-19. It's fascinating. And of course, Mike is on a plane going somewhere far away. What?
What good are negative tests if they don't tell you if you're ever going to get it or not?
If you can't, I don't know. I thought this was supposed to see into your future. It was a future test.